Hello. I think we are live. If anyone doesn't know me on the call, which perhaps you don't, I'm Amy. And I've got Kamara will be coming on shortly. If you are tuning in, it would be great to know where you're tuning in from. I'm just outside of Toronto myself, but if you want to start the chat and let us know where you're here from, that would be great. We'd love to hear all about it. It's really nice where we are today. In fact, the sun is in my eyes right now. So I'm trying to present and not get blinded by the sunlight, but I don't think I'm going to have that problem for much longer now that we're headed into the winter season. So we'll get started momentarily. I think what we can start doing now that we're a minute in is we'll start going through the slides. So today we are here to talk about cover letters. We get lots of questions about those, and I invited, one of my very favorite people in to discuss them, Kamara, as I'm sure a lot of you know. And, one of the reasons that I work with Kamara, and I know that her work is fantastic. And it's always hard to know until you actually work with someone. So my business is working with people who have, in a lot of cases, lost their jobs. And she helps me with all kinds of resumes, reviews, and all kinds of things. And I always am pointing our participants in her direction because she's got her fantastic YouTube channel where she is always putting up new and very interesting content for people who are looking for a new job. People rave about her. So before I even knew Kamara, I spoke with a lot of her clients, and they absolutely loved her work. And I saw what she did, and I totally get why. And now our participants rave about her too. And she is way more popular than I am. And last year she was voted a top LinkedIn voice. So she's officially a top LinkedIn voice, which I think is super exciting. And, she makes topics that could potentially be super boring, very exciting and interesting. And anyone who's on tonight who knows about her YouTube channel would, I'm sure, agree, or who follows her on social media would agree that she does have this ability to make all of this content so exciting. So first I wanted to address, why do our cover letters considered essential? Not essential by every employer, but why do so many employers still ask for cover letters? I know it's incredibly frustrating. In a lot of ways, I wish that we weren't always asked for cover letters, because I think it is really great for some people who have English as their first language. But it's harder for people who maybe are new Canadians, or who, they're just not writers. We're not all writers. But the reason that you're being asked and we're being asked for cover letters when we apply for jobs is really to help the candidates that they want to bring forward stand out. So what an HR person or a recruiter is looking for is really, they want to see that you can put together a sentence, that you can communicate effectively. They want to see a little bit of passion for the role and for the business as well. And I know that Kamara will talk more to this. And I think that they want that to kind of as one way of vetting candidates, because it is so hard with a resume, which you can get written by somebody else, or they can help you with it. Whereas a cover letter is also more likely to come directly from the candidate. So that is those are some of the reasons why. And so my 2 cents on it, Kamara might contradict me, but if she does, listen to her, don't listen to me, I always say. But make it distinctive so that it stands out as being you, and it's not just going to be anybody. And I know that Kamara and I have talked about this in the past, and if she doesn't bring it up, I certainly will. But a lot of the cover letters can be very samey, and one of the great ways to stand out is to make it distinctive, and we can talk a little bit more about that as we go. You want it to match the role, so that you can the person who may be interviewing you can clearly see how you will fit with that specific role. And make it short and sweet, right? My father always says, why say boo-hoo when boo will do? And this really applies to cover letters. We don't want to go on and on and on. We want to make it very succinct. And make sure you check those typos. Definitely use either a friend who you know is really good or a family member, or use Grammarly. There's a free application. It's a Chrome plugin that you can use for your cover letters or any other documents you're creating or emails you're sending. I know it saved me a number of times, and it's a service I highly recommend. So with that, I will pass it over to Camara. Hi.
Hi, Amy. Thank you so much for such a wonderful intro.
Yeah, it's easy to say good things about you.
You're so sweet. You're so sweet. Thank you. And I love your dad's quote. Yeah. Why say boo-hoo when you could say boo?
Why say boo-hoo when boo will do?
Yes, when boo will do. Sorry, I butchered that.
Oh, that's okay. Very memorable. And I like to talk to, and you know, I use that. I know that we're talking about cover letters today, but I also use that advice when I talk to people about following up after interviews and the emails that they might send to get more information about the status of the role or to say thank you, right? We don't want to go on and on, especially when we're mostly checking emails on this device, right?
Absolutely.
And very long, even if a shorter email can start to look pretty long pretty quickly.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. Short and sweet is where it's at. So thank you so much. So I guess I'll take over.
You know what? I have a confession to make. I just realized that I wasn't looking at the chat. I was looking at something else. So thanks, guys. I see we have people here from Texas. I see, Camara, you were also commenting on there. And yes, Jude, Grammarly is wonderful. I absolutely agree. So now I can see the chat. So if you have questions, you're welcome to put those in the chat, and I'll kind of note them down if it gets too long. And once we're ready to start taking questions, we can start answering your specific questions that you have on cover letters. So
absolutely. Yes. And thank you, everybody. Hello, everybody tuning in. Hello again, Karen and Dolores and Zero Phase. That sounds cool. Another Karen, Stephanie, Alana, Jude. Hello, Jude. Kwaku, Andy. Hello, everyone. So thank you so much for joining. So just a brief who I am in case we're meeting for the first time. And I'll go through this very quickly. I am a certified coach, a resume writer, and a LinkedIn consultant. As Amy mentioned, I'm a LinkedIn top voice for 2020. Been published in a bestseller, some media, blah, blah, blah. I have clients all over the world, which is a true honor for me. And I really love and I'm kind of obsessed with all things job search, including cover letters. But what I'm even more obsessed over is The Office. So if you watch my videos on YouTube, you'll know this. But you'll also get a taste for this throughout today's talk. All right. So as Amy mentioned, please do go ahead and type any questions that you have throughout this presentation in the chat. We will get to your questions. I'm looking at the presentation right now, so I'm not going to see them, but we will circle back and get to your questions. So what are we going to cover about cover letters? So we're going to first take a look at cover letter truths, just clearing up some things. The benefits of submitting cover letters. I mean, there's got to be a benefit, right? Otherwise, what's the point? When to submit cover letters and when not to. Common cover letter mistakes. Characteristics of a great cover letter. Bad cover letter examples. So we're going to focus on the bad rather than the good, because the bad can be particularly revealing. And then we'll get into our Q&A. But again, feel free to type your questions in the chat as we go. Okay, so let's clear up a few things around cover letters. We often hear cover letters are dead. This is actually not true at all. Cover letters are not dead. They are very much alive and well and very frequently read. We often hear that cover letters aren't read. Again, not true. Cover letters are frequently read, particularly when they are well written. And the thing with cover letters and the whole not being read factor is perhaps you will encounter a situation where you submit a cover letter and it's not read. But when it comes to our job search, we can only control what we can control. And what we control is what we submit with our job application. And do we want to be the person who didn't submit a cover letter that one time it was expected, or multiple times it was expected? As I see it, cover letters are like insurance. Submitting a cover letter is insurance. It's there when it needs to be there for you. So the worst case scenario when it comes to cover letters is it's not read, but you've done valuable interview prep when actually writing your cover letter. So not all is lost if somehow your cover letter ends up in the trash. You are that much further ahead for your interview. Best case is your cover letter is read and considered in your actual candidacy. So let's talk about some cover letter benefits because, something's got to be in it for us, right? So the great thing about cover letters are we can really use them to say things that our resume can't, or it would be not inappropriate, but it wouldn't be something we would expect to see on a resume. So for example, we can mention if we were referred to a job to which we're applying by someone who's already an employee at the company that we're applying to. We can use our cover letter to really give some insight into our motivation for applying for the particular job. We can show how we really understand the business need that the job exists for. So jobs don't exist just to give us a job, right? We're filling an actual business need. We're there to provide a solution for some sort of problem or issue. So having great insight into what we're solving is something that we can bring up on our cover letter. We can also use it to address any red flags. So maybe you're missing a credential, but you're working towards it. You can save that on your cover letter. You might have spent your entire career in one industry and now you're transitioning to a different one. I've had to do this and address this many times on cover letters for my clients. You might be going from self-employed to employee. I've also had to tackle this as well on cover letters. Or maybe you're really switching it up and changing careers. Another thing that you can talk about and address kind of head on a cover letter. So let's talk about when to submit a cover letter. More so, we should be asking when not to submit a cover letter because there's fewer instances of when not to submit one. You'll want to submit a cover letter in most cases unless it's super clear, like crystal clear, that a cover letter is not wanted by the employer. So you might see something explicitly stated in the job posting, like don't send a cover letter, we don't want it. Or perhaps their career site even says, we don't read cover letters. If that is really laid out clearly and stated, then we want to follow the directions. Following the directions is very important when it comes to applying for jobs. Cover letter optional doesn't mean don't send. So if it's optional, then there's still the opportunity for you to send one along. But if you know that you won't be putting effort into a cover letter, that you'll just be throwing something together that you're not proud of, then you don't want to submit it. No cover letter is better than a really bad cover letter. So don't give them a reason to hold your cover letter against you. Okay, so let's talk about some common cover letter mistakes. Cover letters are kind of confusing. Like we never know really what to include, what to exclude, what's okay, what's not okay. So let's talk about the common cover letter mistakes that I often come across. They're poorly written. This is common. Typically what that shows is, going back to what I just mentioned, is either a lack of time, a lack of effort. And going back to what Amy was saying, you really want to make sure you're proofreading your cover letters. So a big mistake is not proofreading them or having a poorly written cover letter. They're hard to read. Just a spoiler alert, when we get to the bad cover letters, you're going to see what I mean. So rather than get into it in words now, I'm just going to show you what I mean. Using the verbiage like, I'm very excited to apply to the role of, so I'm very excited to apply to the role of software engineer that I saw on Indeed.com. That's just boilerplate, boring. Every cover letter tends to start that way. We want to be different. And going back to also what Amy was mentioning before, we want to be distinct. So let's try and avoid this boilerplate language.
And Kamara, I just wanted to say that's something I see all the time. And I have a confession to make. I've done that when I was early in my career. Like, that's a super easy mistake to make, and you know, it does sound less sincere than we might think it does, especially when that person has read it 5 times before they've read ours for the same job, right?
Absolutely. I think it often comes up on cover letters because we know how important it is to come across as enthusiastic, right? So, but there's other ways to do it. We don't need to do it this way. There's other ways we can show it. So, and that's what we'll get into in a little bit. But yeah, I'm guilty too.
Yeah, I love that advice though, because it's, you know, everyone needs to hear that piece of advice.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. But yes, been there. I confess too, and also my resume. I should do a review of my resume at some point because it was really bad. I should expose myself. Anyway, another common cover letter mistake is your resume just kind of like the barfed all over your cover letter. We don't need your cover letter to be a junior version of your resume. So we'll get into that in a bit more detail. Sometimes you'll see templates circulating, and templates can help to provide structure for your cover letter. And I do believe in a templated approach to cover letter writing. I believe in using the same structure to keep your storytelling consistent and to make it easier on you. But when we do use a template, there are a few things that can trip us up quite a bit. Things are generic. We leave things unspecific. We might be sharing irrelevant information, and we might be addressing the wrong company. So this is the biggest complaints, I think, from recruiters around cover letters, is they receive more cover letters addressing the wrong company than the right company. So again, this goes back to Amy's point about proofreading. It's so important, can't be underestimated. And just be very careful if you are using a template or a structure that you do update every single necessary detail on the cover letter as you go through it.
Kamara, just one point to make there, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
I know that there's not always time, because I do think that you can tell me if you think I'm wrong. I do see an advantage of getting in early when a job post goes up, right? So as soon as you can get in, you should.
Yes.
But one of the pieces of advice I would give about typos and addressing the wrong company is, if you can, sleep on it. Write it, sleep on it, and reread it the next day. Because even if you have an editor, even if you have Grammarly, Grammarly isn't going to pick up if you have the wrong company listed, for instance, right?
That's true.
Or the wrong job title because you had used that template previously. Another thing that I would say about templating, if you can, because actually that was one of my questions for you, because I get this a lot. If you have a template, don't have that content in it at all. Like, don't use a template. Like, go back to the original template every single time that is absolutely blank. And I might be stealing your thunder, but I thought I would mention that.
No, that's a good one. And
Yeah.
the tactic that I use with my clients is when I write a cover letter for them, I will change the information that you absolutely must update with every single cover letter to red.
Yes,
Red
that's
text,
really
red
good.
font.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm trying to
I
think
hope
that
that helps them.
I can't type on the comments, so I apologize. I would respond to people in the comments, but I can't actually type. I am seeing your comments come up though, but I can't actually respond to you.
We will get back to the questions that you see coming
Sure.
in.
Great.
Yeah. So, is there anything that you're seeing there that you feel I should tackle right now?
No, I think that we're good on questions. There's some
Okay.
chat, and yeah, there's some chat, which is great and it's interesting. But no, not any specific questions yet. But if they come
Okay.
up, I will jump in.
All right. Great. All right. Thank you. Okay, so let's talk about great cover letters. And I am going to give you a bit of a suggested structure. This is not a template. This is a suggested structure. The reason I don't want to give you a template for the cover letter is because I don't want to impede your creativity or what you're envisioning for your cover letter. So this is just a suggested structure. So let's talk about the first chunk of a cover letter, and that is the title. Sorry, not the title, your contact information, dating it, addressing it, and things like that. So a letterhead hack that I like to use is I first write a resume, and then what I'll do is I'll save the resume as a new file and then strip out everything from the contact information down and then save that as that new file. And basically what that does is it gives me like a bit of a letterhead. So aesthetically, look wise, everything's consistent between your cover letter and your resume. So that's just a little hack I like to use. And I have a video on YouTube about that really quick. It's very easy. I do encourage you to write cover letters like an actual letter. So we are using date. We are using an addressee, an address, and a dear so-and-so. And in an ideal world, we would address the letter to someone specific. So specifically the hiring manager, if we know who they are, but often we don't. So you would opt to address it to the recruiter instead.
What if there is no name? Are you getting to this? Because I'm in
No.
my when I was younger, the way that we would address it, some people would use sir or madam, right? Which is going to leave out anyone who identifies as non-binary, right? So that's going to be a problem. I used to address to whom it may concern. So is there, a way that if we have no name, if we've no hiring manager, if we have no recruiter, do you have a suggestion there?
Yes. So if there's no hiring manager, no recruiter, like if we're applying to the government, where for sure we're not going to get those details or it's highly unlikely, I just recommend addressing the cover letter to Dear Hiring Team.
That's someone said that. Someone just asked that question in the comments.
Oh, good.
And so that was great. That person knows what they're doing.
Right on. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Dear Hiring Team is sufficient. And that's a way to be inclusive because yes, we do need to be particularly sensitive to not excluding anyone. And so, yeah, Dear Hiring Team, that'll do it. You can even say like, Dear the company name hiring team. So Dear Google hiring team, or just leave it at hiring team. That's totally fine. All right. Okay, so now that we've tackled the top of our cover letter, let's talk about the actual intro, like when we actually get into using our words. So I tend to like a small opening paragraph. So like 3 lines, 4 lines maximum. And in that paragraph, these are just some ideas for what you might want to include in that paragraph. So certainly identify what job you're applying to and why. Like what motivates you particularly to apply to that role, that company? And you could consider mentioning a main strength or history of success that you'd like to bring to that role. This is where we can really show that we understand that business need that we would be filling stepping into that role. Or even something that stood out to you about the company that you connect with, something about their mission, values, philosophy. Perhaps you saw something really interesting in their social media about something in the news, how the company was in the news. You could mention that and how you really connected with that and want to be a part of whatever that mission is. There's a lot of different ways that you can really play up this paragraph, this opening paragraph. And really what we're going for here is to be bold. We're going to the complete opposite end of the rest of everybody who's saying, I'm really excited to apply to this role that I saw on LinkedIn. We want to almost blow the reader away with being different, just taking a totally different approach to how we open our cover letter. So your creativity is your only limitation in this paragraph.
Kamara, we have a couple of questions, and I apologize. We're going to go back a little bit here. But there's a question about, there's some recent cover letter classes are suggesting that any info above a line is not read by ATS software. Meaning it looks like meaning it looks like some cover letters have no name on them and then will get tossed.
So what that's referring to is, and you know what, I'm just going to show you. I'm going to open up a Word document so we can clear this up, because this is important, and this can be particularly confusing. So let me just share this Word document.
We have another, I see the other question here, but I'll wait until we finish this one and then I'll ask you the next one.
Okay. Do we see a blank Word document?
We do.
Okay, great. So what that's referring to is, it has nothing to do with lines. It is referring to this section here, the header and the footer. So applicant tracking systems, so ATSs have a challenge with, or are challenged with reading this section. But what that means for you as a job seeker who's applying online is not much. It means you're creating more work for yourself. You're creating work for yourself in that you will be asked to re-enter that information most likely when you're applying online. So I'm sure many people who are on this webinar can relate to this. You upload your wonderful resume and you hit submit, and then the system asks you to re-enter literally everything on the resume that you just uploaded. So that's because it might have run into difficulty getting that information out of the document. So when people say certain things aren't read by the ATS, it doesn't mean that the reader isn't going to see a name on your resume. It means that you're just creating work for yourself where you need to re-enter information.
Great.
I hope that helps.
Yeah, and if I'll look for any follow-up question there. There is a question about should the company, I think you did cover this, but we said, dear hiring team, should there be the company, like dear Google, or sorry, should the company name be a part of the address for the I think I'm confused about this question. I'm just going to read it as is. Should the company name be part of the address for hiring manager? I'm not sure exactly what that means. If that's
I think I understand. Okay, let's pop back up to that slide. So hiring manager name, right? Sure. I mean, you could say hiring manager name, comma, Google, hiring manager name, another space, Google address. Yeah, if you want to.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
And then another question is, can you, for example, link the intro to a speech made by a leader of the organization at a workshop or something?
Sure. I'm going to use probably the worst CEO I should name, but When I heard Mark Zuckerberg addressing Congress, I was particularly drawn to the fact that he said blah, 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 blah. That's something that I can really connect with, and it's something that I'd like to be a part of as your next software engineer.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so absolutely. Bad example, I know, but that's the only CEO that came to mind. But certainly, again, you're only limited by your creativity, and really anything as long as it's specific to the company, it shows or emphasizes your understanding of the company, their brand, their mission, their business need. It's fair game. So go for it. Okay, some space wasters on cover letters. We've already talked about this. I'm so excited to apply to this role. I'm the ideal candidate for this role. We don't need to say this stuff. We can prove it, and your resume will also prove a lot of, especially the I'm the ideal candidate for this role sentence. All right, so we've tackled the top of the cover letter. We've tackled the first intro paragraph. Now let's segue into noting down or emphasizing some of the strengths and skills that we'll bring to the table. So I like to use one more small paragraph right after the intro where we transition from the why I'm applying more to what I offer. So you can briefly summarize some of your qualifications in a couple sentences. This will really help prevent some resume regurgitation. If you put a cap on how much you're allowing yourself to say, you're not going to say too much. This paragraph is also where you can address red flags like we talked about earlier. This could also include a personal story for why you chose your career or a change in careers. So one cover letter I wrote recently for a client, they were in a very specific subset of marketing, and we shared a very personal story that went all the way back to this client's childhood that showcased how they really were motivated to making a difference through their profession in this particular industry. So you can consider sharing personal stories that you're comfortable with. We want to also be cognizant of bias. So we might not want to get too personal if we fear that it might open ourselves up to bias. So that's also a consideration. But there are some personal stories which might be safe, so to speak.
Mara, we have one question again on the salutation. I think it's a good one though, because we talked about hiring team. Can it be addressed to the department, saying diversity and inclusion department hiring team as an example?
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's actually good. Make it more specific.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. We just don't want to go the goal is to avoid the dear sir, madam, or to whom it may concern. Because that feels impersonal. It feels like we're excluding possibly. So yeah, I think that totally works. All right, so after we've got that second mini paragraph, we can get into sharing a few bullets of our key skills that we have that are required or desired of us in the role to which we're applying. So I would encourage 3 or 4 skills, naming the skill here. So at the front of the bullet, you would start with something like data analysis, and then you would expand upon that skill. So you could talk about how you might have a degree in data analytics, and then you can also expand even further and use your best accomplishment that relates to that skill or relates to demonstrating that skill. So these should be about a sentence or 2 each. We don't want our bullets to be long ever because a bullet that's long will quickly turn into a paragraph. That's what we're trying to avoid. So we're going really short, really sweet, and very much to the point. Okay.
Someone had a question.
Yeah.
Actually, I had the same question that's being
Sure.
asked. Can the bullet be bold? Like if you say project management as your
Yes.
bullet one,
Yes.
should project management be, I guess this is going to come into someone's creative, what they want to do creatively with their document. But the question was, should it be bolded? The
Yes, it
very
can
first
be. I
couple
do
words.
that. I
Yeah.
do that in my cover letters.
Yeah.
So, project management in bold, colon, blah, 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 about
Right.
project management.
Yeah. That way it stands out, right? And it draws in the
Yeah.
eye as
It's
soon as
not
you, yeah.
it's not make or break. That's purely aesthetic. It's not make or break, because being in a bullet, that will make it stand out.
Yeah.
And so when we use bullets sparingly and strategically like this, the content in those bullets will stand out because we're not overusing the bullets, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, and after we've emphasized some of our strengths, then we go in for the close. Ask for an interview. So you can end your cover letter very easily, like, I look forward to discussing this role with you. I'd love to share some ideas I have with you during an interview. With my experience doing something really specific that they need, I'm confident I can make an impact in this role. I'd love to discuss further during an interview. Make sure you ask for that interview. It's a really easy way to close that letter. It's a no-brainer way to close a letter. And you don't need to be left wondering, how do I end this? Just ask for an interview.
It's interesting because when we were talking about the beginning of the message, we wanted to make sure that we sounded unique and distinctive. But I do wonder if I look forward to discussing this role with you. I think it's really important to ask for the interview, but I'm wondering what your thoughts are. And I feel like that is a line that a lot of candidates would use. Do you recommend, like, I'd love to share some ideas I have with you during an interview. I actually personally prefer that if we're trying to be distinctive.
Sure. And again, creativity is the only limitation here. So my thing is just make sure you're asking for an interview. So for sure, yeah. When I'm writing the close for some of my clients, I might say something like a variation on the ideas. So I've done, something similar at blah, blah, blah company. And I think that I can bring some really unique insights to this role. And I have some ideas I'd like to share with you during an interview. So, and any of these can work. Is if you're strapped for what to say, you can easily just close it with this, but just the point is to make sure you ask for an interview rather than get stuck.
I think we underestimate how much hiring managers and recruiters want to see you call out that this is similar to a role that I've done previously. It creates so much security for them when they're speaking to someone they know has been there and done that. And I think sometimes that's underestimated by candidates when they're going to apply for a job.
For sure. For sure. All right. Okay, let's look at bad cover letters. This is, I think everyone's going to enjoy this. All right, so.
I'm interested to see this too. I fear that I might see the similar cover letters to what I've written in the past.
Oh, I doubt it. But anyway, so I'm going to zoom in. First, I'm going to zoom out because by zooming out, you'll get the full picture of what we're working with here. So let me zoom out. Let me zoom in. So I would love to hear in the chat. What issues do you see with this cover letter by Dwight Schrute? Amy, what issues do you see?
Well, I don't want to steal anyone's thunder, but I first see to whom it may concern.
Okay.
That's the first thing I see. It's very, very long.
Yes.
there's a paragraph in the middle that's like an essay.
Yes.
Yeah, someone
Yes.
here says too text heavy, quite lengthy, too dense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite lengthy, too text heavy. Absolutely. Big block of text. Yes.
Yeah.
Too dense. Second paragraph is too long. Yes. So, unfortunately, I see this more often than not.
Yeah.
I do come across many cover letters where it's huge blocks of text. So when we're working with huge blocks of text, or we're including huge blocks of text, it's just very difficult for the reader to read it, leaving them not wanting to read it. So if we want to improve our chances of our cover letter being read, then we really want to make sure we're considering the reader.
Kamara, someone's made the comment here that and it's so true, there's no white spaces, right? And I actually happen to notice when you write your someone else, well, you'll love the next one.
Nap.
Yeah, I can take a nap just looking at it. But I even notice when you write your LinkedIn posts, which are excellent, and one key reason why you got the accolades you have from LinkedIn is you do leave white space in your posts as well.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. White space is so important. Like Kwaku was saying as well, like it lets the document breathe. So when we read something like this, I actually feel it in my chest. Like I can't breathe when I'm reading the second paragraph, particularly. But in the finer details, yes, certainly, to whom it may concern, attention HR manager isn't the best. Maybe the HR manager is not the person who is hiring or managing the recruitment process. So this goes back to addressing it to hiring team when we don't know who we're supposed to address it to. But ideally, we might have an idea of who to address it to. But HR manager is just too vague. Yeah. So that's Mr. Dwight Schrute's cover letter. Absolutely, Kwaku. White space goes for resume too. You betcha. All right. So let's take a look at our next bad cover letter.
I'm excited. I don't know why I'm excited, waiting to see.
I should have probably left Dwight's for last because I think his is the worst.
Oh, dear.
But this one, I'm not a fan of either. Okay. So, love to hear in the chat. I'm going to zoom out a bit. And then I'm going to zoom in. And we're going to take a look at the finer details here because they're important. Okay, so this is Jim Halpert's cover letter. So let's take a deeper dive into this. What issues are you seeing in this cover letter? Tell us in the chat. I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts are.
Well, we know that Jim Halpert hasn't had to submit a cover letter forever because he's had the same job.
That's true.
For
That's
most of
true.
my adult life.
And then he started a sports marketing company.
Oh, so, right. I forgot about that. An entrepreneur. Right. So
yeah.
Someone's saying, Karen's saying it looks like the resume again. Kwaku saying that table, no, not good.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, you can see them coming up too.
Yeah. Resume with table, sir or madam. Yes. Fantasy. Yeah. DeMarshall. Yeah. Sir or madam. I'm going to zoom in a touch more here to get a closer look. So just going to read off a little bit of what he said in the beginning. So, dear sir or madam, we know that's a problem. I'm writing to express my interest in the sales manager position. I was excited to see the position on LinkedIn. Currently, I'm looking for a role that allows me to utilize my broad experience in sales and my specialized expertise in athletics. Therefore, I'm very interested in this role. What are your thoughts and feelings when you hear that first paragraph? I know what I think about it.
Yeah. It's like all the things we said not to do, right? It just sounds like everybody else.
That's
And
right. Yeah.
yeah, I
Says
like
nothing.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. It says absolutely nothing. It's very Angela yawn. Yeah, absolutely. Also, I feel it's a bit too focused on Jim himself. Currently, I'm looking for a role that allows me to utilize my skills. So, as we know, when we're job searching and applying for jobs, we're basically marketing ourselves. We're pitching ourselves to be the solution to that business need, right? So when we're talking about this more from our perspective, about the job I want, the career I want, how this will help me grow in my career, that's too self-serving. So we want to make it about the employer.
Someone here said it's robotic, no personality, and that's
Yes.
So true.
Just blabbing, not interested, no meat, just fluff.
Yeah.
Looks more like a resume. Good catch. We're going to talk about that. Very generic info. Absolutely. He doesn't explain what he offers. Right. Nothing distinguishing about the candidate. You betcha. So let's take a little look further down this letter. And Jude picked up on this. So this structure of a cover letter is what's called T format. We've got the T going on here. Honestly, it looks like a T table or whatever, a T account in accounting, in my opinion. So this, as Jude pointed out in the chat, this was a format that was recommended. I don't know by who, but it was recommended a while back. I still see it being recommended because what the aim is to match up requirements from the job posting with Jim's qualifications here. But as someone else pointed out, this looks exactly just like a resume, doesn't it? There's no difference here. It's adding no additional value. It's not complementing the resume. It just is the resume all over again.
And it also strikes me, the one thing that would come to mind if I looked at a cover letter like this is it's someone who lacks soft skills. And we know that soft skills are so highly valued because it's clear this is not a way to communicate with someone you're trying to impress, right? So, yeah, so it would suggest to me that they may not know how to relate well to people in the role.
Good catch. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, we really want to avoid using this T format, T structure for our cover letter. And people don't really read like this, hopping back and forth. It's not a natural read. We want to make sure that the documents we're creating provide for a natural, smooth reading experience, if you will. So let's take a look at the close. Please see my resume attached for details about my experience in education. I am confident that I could make significant contributions to your organization and deliver the results you are looking for. Please call or email me to schedule an interview. Thank you for your time and consideration. How could Jim have improved this close? What do you think? Tell us in the chat. And I'm just
well, I can make one comment there.
Sure.
Well, first of all, I think it's weird. You're kind of telling them, please call or email me. It's like you do all the work. Of course they have to, right? I get that. But there's no phone number. Might be good to put your phone number right in there. I don't know. That could be wrong.
Could do. He does put it in his letterhead. But yeah, could do. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Let's see what we've got in the chat. So transactional. Don't use please twice for one. Okay. That's funny. All right.
I don't like regards. Do you know that they've done research to say what close in an email or a note that's the highest response? Can anyone guess what it is?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, there's actually like research on what you should say at the end of a message to elicit the highest response rate. And they've done research on the ones that, so I'm not seeing anything come through. So I will ruin the surprise, the mystery. It's yes, you're right, Karen. Thanks. That's what it is. Gratitude, show gratitude. That's actually the
Nice.
best way to get a response
Nice.
from another person. Yep. Some form of thank you or thanks.
Oh,
Yep.
man.
You guys had it. Yeah.
That's great. I'm going to have to change how I do things.
Oh, listen, as you're going through all this, I feel badly because I'm sure that like some people are on this thinking, oh my goodness, I just did this last week. I probably not the chart, but I want to say that I've made every single mistake you can make with a cover letter. So if anyone's looking at this feeling like, oh my goodness, I just did this, don't feel bad because I see this in Camara, you see this all the time, right? It's so hard to write cover letters. It really is, because unless you come to a session like this, or you learn, like we don't write cover letters every day. It's not like writing an email or even a text message, right?
It's true.
So if you've done this wrong, I just want to say forgive yourself, because I'm forgiving myself a lot during this during this presentation.
Oh, yes. Yes. Well, I do sign my emails. Thanks. Thank you. Whatever. But I've been using warmest regards on cover letters. So I'm probably going to have to switch it up.
I don't think there's anything wrong with warmest regards. I just think that thank you, it's a humble way to sign off. Yeah. So consideration for future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And now I'm going to show you one more bad cover letter, and let's take a look. I'm going to stop this one, and then we'll get into Q&A. Let's see here. Okay, this is Mr. Kevin Malone's. It's not Ashton Kutcher, it's Kevin Malone. I'm such an office nerd. Anyway, so let's...
You are? I would have never known. Anyway, I'm sure everybody follows Camara. Like, you're so
obsessed. Yeah. Anyway, so let's take a look. This is shorter. So tell me the issues you see in the chat. So we've got Kevin starting with, you know what? I'll have to scroll up a little. So there's maybe some extra white space there. Let's take a bit of a read of the cover letter. My name is Kevin Malone, and I'm an interested applicant in the position currently available. My skills consist of being great with the numbers, great with computers, analytical, reliable, and flexible. I like to sit, which is why I think the position is a great fit for me. I have attached my resume in the hopes of being considered for it. Thank you in advance for your time reading this letter. Should you choose to move forward with my application, please do not hesitate to call me at number to schedule an interview. Also, I would be happy to provide you with any additional information about my qualifications and references. Yours truly, Kevin Malone. Yes, I like to sit was just a joke. But anyway, it was inspired by another cover letter that I saw that said, I'm a young professional, so this would be a good fit for me. So equally as valuable as saying I like to sit. So let's see. So absolutely, fantasy, which position? Exactly. He didn't say so. Generic, lacking confidence. Should you choose? You got it. That is really a slip up. To whom it may concern? Yep. Great equals fluff descriptor. Yep, definitely in this case. He doesn't include enough information about his specific skills that align to the role. Absolutely. Absolutely. Jude, first sentence provides no information. Lots of boo-hoo instead of boo. For sure. For sure. So yeah, this is sometimes cover letters will go overly generic in the effort of being in the interest of trying to be short, but we can still be specific while keeping things short and concise. So This is just an extreme
it's so
example.
good to look at these bad examples, right? Because when we're writing cover letters, then we can think, oh, okay, yeah, you know what? This is reminding me of that bad example. I better do something about that. So it's nice to have good examples. Sometimes we just take good examples and we copy off of those, and we shouldn't, because then it doesn't sound like us, right? And we might
Right.
need to do something like way better about ourselves, and we might see, if we repeat someone else's words. So I really, really like this approach to learning how to write a great cover letter.
Yeah. Wonderful. I'm glad it was helpful.
Yeah.
So let's wrap this up then, and we'll get into questions. All right. Okay, are we still open? Yes, we are. Okay. Amy, do you see the presentation?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great. So just to recap, the key takeaways, to summarize, cover letters are recommended with most applications. Again, if the employer makes it obvious they don't want a cover letter, don't send one. It's important to follow the directions. Use a cover letter to tell more of your story. Always think of the reader. And the cover letter should complement your resume, not be a mini version of it. All right. So let's hear your questions, and I'm going to go all the way up in the chat to see if there was anything that we missed. I don't think we did miss anything, did we, Amy?
I don't think so, but if anybody disagrees with me, they can
please repeat your question if we do miss it.
Yeah. I just found this, like I said, so incredibly helpful. And I think one big mistake that most of us make just in life in general is we come to things with our point of view, right? And when we come to applying for a job, it's all about me, like what makes me good about the role, because we're trying to advocate for ourselves. And if we step back for a minute and think about what does the person who's looking at this need from me in order to select me as a candidate, that will get us, we'll make more headway that way than thinking like, what do I have to offer, and just throwing it all out there. And what do I need in a role? Mm-hmm. Karen made a funny comment here. I personally, I'm going to add, I like to sit in my cover letters now. It's funny because you hear some people describe themselves like as an outdoors person, right? Like that's always so like, it seems like sounds like so good. And I used to make the joke, well, I'm going to start describing myself as an indoors person.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm very indoorsy.
Definitely. Well, as I'm going through the chat, I just have to note, ALR 1129 is clearly also an Office fan.
Yeah.
Because Dwight is able to describe himself in 3 words.
That's funny. Oh, I didn't know that. That's a good
yes.
So, someone mentioned here, Jude mentioned yours truly might be very fitting for a specific sector. For example, legal, academia. And, I have noticed that when I look at resumes, for academia, there are very different, and I give very different advice, even for government. So maybe you want to speak a little to that, Kamara, about, different industry, different approach.
Sure. In terms of the close?
Yeah, well, this comment here referred specifically to the close, being more fitting, rather than maybe what I said about thanks, being more fitting for different sectors.
Right. I see what Jude's saying here. Yeah, for sure. I mean, as Jude points out, know your audience. Absolutely. My approach to cover letters is I do like to err on the side of a conversational tone. So a thanks or a thank you at the bottom as a close before you sign off, it would sound a little more approachable to most readers, I think. So I like that is scientifically proven as getting the best response rate. That's really great. But yeah, Jude raises a good point that if it's a more conservative, traditional industry, that potentially yours truly might play better, for sure.
And if it's an industry you've been in before, like you've been in for some time and you see how people, the salutations they use or how they sign off, it is good to reflect. So they feel like you're already part of that environment or that culture, that work culture. That might be a good thing. So there's a question here. When applying via LinkedIn InMail, can you see that? Okay.
Yep.
You can see it. Yeah. I won't
Yeah. When applying via LinkedIn InMail or another auto uploader, submit button, should the resume and cover letter be in all-in-one PDF or a separate docs? Great question. So if you are not or if you're only permitted to submit one file, then I would consolidate them. Cover letter followed by resume. If that's not possible, then prioritize your resume over your cover letter every time. However, if you are submitting your application by email or InMail, so you're attaching your resume, your cover letter becomes the body of that message. So you would strip out the date, you would strip out all the letter formality, if that makes sense. So you strip out the date, you're stripping out the addressee, and you would say, well, you know who you're sending it to in many cases. So you'd say, dear whomever. If it's a generic inbox, then it would be dear whomever hiring team. Yeah, so I would consolidate it. But when you are emailing or InMailing the application, the cover letter becomes the message itself. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
Let me know if it does.
There's a couple more. There's a comment and then a question here. If you scroll down on the
PDF comment.
Yep. There's yep. Must they be sent via PDF? Yeah.
No, but so always when you're applying online, always check to see what the allowable file formats are. Typically, when you're applying online, you can apply with multiple different file formats, Word or PDF. If you've got the option of Word or PDF, I do typically recommend PDF. And the reason for that is because it locks down that content in terms of it can't be manipulated. And also it translates across computers. So we don't need to worry, like I don't need to worry when I'm sending cover letter from my PC over to Amy, who might be on a Mac, if it's in Word. But if it's in PDF, sorry, I don't have to worry if it's in PDF, but if it's in Word, then it could get a little discombobulated, translating between different systems, different software, et cetera, et cetera. So PDF is preferred when you can, but you don't have to.
What about the ATS systems and resume? Shouldn't we typically put a resume in Word? Shouldn't we submit our resume in Word? No? Okay.
No, that's not necessary. If PDF is acceptable, then it's something that is permitted. And we know this when we're on the actual application site, and it tells you what file formats you can use. So it does not have to be in Word. I used to think that as well, but ATSs are becoming more sophisticated. And really what we're most concerned about is, can the ATS auto-populate my information into their application form, which I will have a chance to review before I hit the final submit. So we may be in a situation, depending on the formatting in the background in the PDF, we may have a situation where we need to upload some more information, but that's pretty common in our job search experience and job applying experience.
I just want to say that is one of my big pet peeves when I was applying for jobs in the past, and you would put it all done and you're like, oh, I got it all done. This isn't going to take long at all. And then it didn't populate, and hours later, that's what happened. So there's a comment here about seeming through someone. Yeah, there it is. I worry about recruiters seeing through the facade of a cover letter as if I'm some door-to-door salesman.
Do you feel like a door-to-door salesman when you're writing your resume as well? Because your resume is to serve basically as a way to market you. So I can see why you might have this feeling, but I don't see why a cover letter would be more salesman than a resume. I'd be curious to hear your thought, Jake. Tell me more about your feelings.
Yeah, sometimes like, oh, no, it's not coming. They're not commenting, but um, I can see why people would feel that way. You're strutting your stuff, but it doesn't have to be. It can be genuine, right? It can be sincere,
Yeah, it
without
should be
oversharing. But
genuine.
yeah, yeah,
And you're not um claiming skills you don't have, claiming strengths you don't have, claiming interest you don't have. If you are claiming interest you don't have, then why are you applying for the job in the first place if you don't really want it?
yeah.
So okay, I understand. It seems a bit more personal. So scale back on the personal. I
Yeah.
mean, you don't need to oh, maybe you meant the resume seems more personal, Jay, but anyway, yeah, scale back where it feels misaligned with you. If it feels salesy to you, then that should really be an indication that you might be oversharing for your own comfort.
Mhm.
So what's this? Maybe I have this idea of a mean old recruiter. I see. I see. Well, when I hear of recruiters reading cover letters, they're really connecting with them. So when a cover letter is thoughtfully written, they're really enjoying them, and it's not perceived as being salesy. It's being perceived as, hey, this is another human I can connect to. This is actually humanizing the person behind the paper. So anyway, those are my thoughts.
We should look at it like recruiters and, hiring managers, they want people to succeed. That's what
Yes.
they want, because then everybody gets what they want. They have a role that needs to be filled. You need a job. They want it to work out. It's like when I used to give, live presentations. Now they're all virtual, but I get so nervous presenting. And one day someone just said to me, your audience wants you to succeed. So get up there with that attitude, and that will make a big difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as more questions come in, I just want to point out a few more resources available to you. So my YouTube channel, which has the cover letter letterhead tutorial that I've recorded, cover letter signature tutorial, which I just loaded last week, cover letter mistakes video as well. And you can also get my free cover letter guide, which is on my website under free stuff.
And that's
So,
great. I've read it. I've
oh,
sent it
thank
out to
you.
people too. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So, yeah, just to answer a question that came up. Let's see here. Do I have a good example of a cover letter? There are so many ways to write a great cover letter. What I recommended earlier on is just a suggested structure. So I don't, like I mentioned, I don't want to impede your creativity. I don't want to change how you envision your cover letter being written. The guide will help you as you move forward with cover letter writing. So I do recommend that you pick that up. But yeah, I don't have a sample of a good one because I don't want to force an idea into your mind, if that makes sense. Bad ones, I'm all over picking those apart. But anyway, so let's see here. Just going to bring those slides back up.
Great.
Just finish
Well,
off
as
here.
you're doing that, I just want to say that when I initially talked to Kamara about running this session, I'm like, let's just do a Q&A. Or, we can talk. You don't really have to put together a presentation. And she went like full. You did it all. You put this amazing presentation together for everyone. So here's my Halloween thank you. And I'm sure that everyone watching is very grateful because you went well above and beyond. And
thank you.
this was such an excellent session. I just love when, I learned a lot too. And as an entrepreneur, I hope that I'm not having to apply for jobs in the future, but who knows what life will bring. But thank you so much. You always give so much of yourself in everything you do, and I'm sure that you have a lot of followers here and people who tune into your YouTube channel who are connected with you everywhere on social. you know, I think you are just the best resource when it comes
Thank
to,
you.
and you tell it like it is, right? And I love that. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for hosting this.
Yeah. My
And
pleasure.
I hope it was helpful. And thank you everyone who's tuned in and your great questions and coming along on the ride with us and picking apart the bad cover letters. It was really great and a lot of fun. And I hope you guys learned something.
Yeah, thanks so much, and and good luck with your job search. And where we are, it's nighttime now. It's almost dinner time, but I don't where you guys are all over the world, it seems like. So wherever you are, I hope you enjoy the rest of what's left of your day.
Thanks everyone. All the best to you. Take care.
Bye.